The following is an excerpt from Adventures in Gray Polyester, Volume 1, Ignorance, Ineptitude, and Indecency Inside the World of Hotel Security. The excerpt is called, I'm Just Gonna Say It. So for my last tale of the Art Evans Hotel, I'll divulge a story which pales to some, I've told you in grandeur, but delivers an abundance of stupidity. Not to mention a little, tell me you didn't say that. On this in particular night, things were going swimmingly. The bar was full of what seemed to be sensible people having a high school reunion. 25-year by the looks of them. The DJ was playing decent music. The guard on lounge duty was competent and did not need me to babysit him. It was about 0100 when the eventual event took place. I had stopped at the front desk and was talking to Selma. Likely for longer than I should have, but I digress. So as I leaned against the desk and spoke with her, a drunk man approached the desk and asked her for a bit of information. She began to look, and he looked at me. Sorry to interrupt. Not at all, sir. There was a frivolous exchange between he and I as Selma looked for the information. At one point, Selma bent over with her back to us as she attempted to find the info for him. I looked away from her and towards him. Mostly out of respect for my wife, but also out of respect for Selma, who was my friend. I did not look at her that way, but it also wasn't a surprise to me that some men would. And this intoxicated fellow was one of those guys. He didn't look away. Matter of fact, you might say he entered a state of hypnosis, even going so far as to actually lick his lips as he gandered at Selma's backside. I wanted to change his behavior without calling Selma's attention to it. So I reached out in between he and I and tapped subtly on the desk a few times. On the third one, he looked down at my hand, and I motioned for him to look at me, which he did. I gave him a kind of, what are you doing, dummy look, and he gave me a devilish grin. I decided to try and keep his focus on me, so I said, great music tonight, right? Oh yeah, man, you can't go wrong with 80s rock. Unfortunately, despite my best efforts, keeping his whole focus on me proved impossible, as he was soon salivating over Selma once again. I called his attention back to me, this time by snapping my fingers. But this time when he looked at me, he smiled and said, I'm just gonna say it. That's a great ass. He turned back to look at her as he said it. I was honestly shocked. I don't know why I was, but I was. I couldn't believe he'd be that dumb. Selma stood up quickly and turned around and made eye contact with me. She was mad. Deservedly so. And that sight snapped me out of my shock. And I stepped toward him non-threateningly, saying, okay, buddy, let's go for a walk. He began trying to explain it away. No, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude or nothing. Dude, come on. Then Selma spoke to me. No, hold on. I did. And she turned and spoke to him. You saying you ain't trying to be rude, but you are. Unbelievably rude. And you're lucky I'm at work. Because if I wasn't and you said some shit like that, I'd rip your fucking tongue out. He was surprised. And again, tried to backpedal, but didn't get far as I took over. Come on, out the door, bud. But it's cold outside. Maybe it'll calm your ass down. Besides, it's safer for you out there, don't you think? He looked back at Selma and said, yeah, probably. He walked outside and lit a cigarette. And I walked back up to Selma. I can't believe he said that to you. Not exactly the best example of your gender. I laughed. No, not exactly. She sighed as her anger faded. And then she looked at me. Are you going on tour? In a few minutes. Can you hold off on it and stay here till they leave? Yeah, sure. Thanks. I don't want to deal with him again. Don't worry. You won't have to. So I skipped that tour and waited with Selma. When he came in, he made like he was going to come over, but I shook my head and pointed him towards the bar. And once the bar closed, he went to his room. About an hour after that, when I was confident that he was likely asleep, I told Selma, all right, I'm going to pick up the tour now. If you see him at all, hit me on the walkie and go in the back office. Will do. He didn't come back down, and Selma and I were both gone before he woke from his drunken stupor. Not every story carries with it a lesson, but this one surely does. See, Selma is a wife and a mother of 3. Her wedding ring is clearly visible on her hand, and she was at work. Guys, I get it. I remember what it was like to be single. But even at my most wild, I wouldn't have behaved like this fool. I get that you're a guy, but you can be a guy without being this guy.